I thought the immunity was if they found something that needed to be investigated, Ole Miss would have their opportunity to talk to Leo Lewis. Do you think we had a fair shake in uncovering that information?
All of that's going to be part of our appeal. It's been already filed in some of our earlier filings and letters that we sent. But again, that'll come up again in the appeal. That'll be one of our appeal aspects.
Ross or Chancellor, whichever one of you wants to answer. Do you guys have any regrets about the way you approached this case?
We did what we needed to do. We're appealing this case because we were not given proper due course, and we are concerned about that. We're fighting for our students. They've had enough. They shouldn't deserve any more. We're also, frankly, bringing up concerns that might be of general use to our member institutions in the NCAA because it's important to raise issues of concern that affect the entire membership.
Limited immunity is not unprecedented. It's been used before, and they actually touted its effectiveness today. What is borderline unprecedented is the fact that some of these individuals were at a competing institution in your conference, in your division. At any point in time, was there correspondence with yourselves, Greg Sankey, and the SEC about this situation and the sensitivity of it?
Yeah, we consulted with the conference on a regular basis. Commissioner Sankey, with his experience on the Committee on Infractions, was a helpful resource for us throughout the process. The limited immunity, he was not a part of, but he could help us guide through, the next steps in our case, the next, prepare for the hearing, and now he'll help us prepare for the appeal as well.
Ross, just for clarification purposes, will this be the same governing body, COI, that oversees your appeal, or will it be another one?
Different panel.
Okay.
Yeah, there's an appeals panel committee that would hear the appeal.
Ross, did today's ruling have any impact on Rebel Rag's ability to sell licensed goods or anything moving forward?
That's one of the things we're assessing right now, and so again, we have to go through the entire report. Obviously, we disassociated a lot of our boosters that are in the case. They were not one of them at this point, so we have to assess that and determine how he can, really be a part of the program moving forward, and we haven't had time to do that yet.
Sort of the narrative from today is that Ole Miss has a culture problem with its boosters. Does Ole Miss have a culture problem with its boosters?
If there's one booster that acts inappropriately, to me, that's a problem, and we're going to make sure that we do everything we can to not have that. But as Ross pointed out, we're one of 3 institutions out of 14 in the SEC that went 20 years without a major infractions case. And we are having to deal with cases from over 20 and over 30 years ago as influencing, ultimately, this imposition of a 2018 bowl ban. So we take everything seriously. That's why we're going to be doing things I don't know any other institution doing, namely putting very publicly on the web who the boosters are that violated our procedures and what they did and their penalties. They're not going to be welcome at athletics events, and we take this very seriously.
Chancellor, what is your opinion of how Ross has led this response?
I have the highest regard for Ross. He's a great athletics director. Everybody who has been responsible for NCAA violations has either been severed from the university or has been held accountable. And Ross is going to provide the continued leadership so that we can forge ahead and reach new heights in our athletics program.
Ross, in terms of conversations you've had with Matt, with the team, what's the general sense of their response to this news, and what are the words you shared with them in regards to moving forward?
We had a team meeting this morning at 10 o'clock. Obviously, I'm sure through social media they had heard about it, but Matt wanted to address them, face to face. So the Chancellor, myself, and Coach Luke met with the team who could make it this morning. And obviously, again, they've been through a lot. I think a lot of them are resilient now. And the message was, look, we just went through the same thing last year. We have to do the same thing next year. But we are going to appeal. We are going to fight for them because they're the ones that should not be punished in this situation. And so I think the mood was a little bit sad, a little bit unknown. Coach Luke has done a great job of either meeting with groups of the team or with individuals, and I know they're gonna have position meetings as well. And so I think that right now we just need to stay around the team. We need to be in communication with them and make sure that we can answer any questions that they have.
Ross, a follow-up question on the transfers. You said you were aware of other schools poaching on the Ole Miss players. Was that legal for them to do it? To this point, is it legal now for them to recruit the players? And which players can they recruit? Is it just the rising seniors, or can they recruit all
They
of
can
them?
contact the rising seniors, and then the rising senior has to notify us. So there needs to be communication. And so anyone that's contacting underclassmen with more than 1 year of eligibility would be breaking NCAA rules.
Has that been turned in by y'all with you being aware?
We're tracking a lot of things right now.
Ross, staying on that line of the transfers, based on the fact that you're appealing this bowl ban, does that delay their ability to transfer, or are they still open?
We're not sure yet. The process for them will continue. They can move forward with whatever process they want to put forward through the transfer, mechanisms. How an appeal would affect that, we don't know that answer yet.
Ross, have any of the rising seniors indicated this morning that they wanted to transfer? Have you heard any of that yet?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Based on the anger, the unfairness that you've expressed today, would you still do everything the same way again? You had to do over?
Obviously there'll be a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking, related to this case. We, throughout the entire process, Chuck, again, believe that we're better off being a part of the process, not on the outside. And so the pushback was very, very forceful, was very, very strategic. It was never behind a podium. And so people can criticize that, they can argue with that, but there is a process that you go through to push back. If people knew the number of conference calls, the angst that we shared throughout this, especially after the spring, summer of 2016, I think people would understand that we pushed back. Again, if you look at some of our filings, that will become public. If you look at our supplemental response after the hearing, I think people would understand the position that we took to defend the university.
Ross, one question about the scholarships here, and it listed here on page 54. Tell the difference between a grant and there's 13 grants, 10 initial grants, and will Ole Miss ever go underneath 81 scholarships in any given year?
So we have served already 10, so we reduced our scholarships by a total of 13 over a 4-year period. Okay, it was a 15% reduction off of 85, right? And so this year we were down 6 scholarships, right? Last year we were down 2 scholarships. The year before we were down 1 scholarship. Next year we're down 4 scholarships, so we'll be at 81. So that gets you to 13. The 10 initials are part of the signing class. So you're capped out at 25. You can only sign 25 student athletes in your signing class. Some you can count backwards and some you can move forward. So we're restricted by a total of 10 initial signees, and that's spread out over a 3-year period. So none of that changed. They accepted all of our self-imposed penalties with really the exception of one, and that's the 2018.
Go back to draft night again for a second. You said the tone and the tenor of this changed in April. Do you think that draft night specifically affected the way that they approached this investigation? And also you're talking about how there was a sudden change in the way that the cooperation between the institution and the NCAA, how that cooperation deteriorated. What, in your opinion, I'm not asking you to speculate, but you've already stated that there was a change. Why did that occur? Was it draft night?
I don't want to speculate on why it occurred, but what was up to that point the process where we could investigate and contribute stopped. And we were kept out of the process, and it became a one-way process. And for that reason, I just don't think it was very fair. And there are things that, to me, are pretty obvious that should have been done, should have been questioned, should have been looked at, that weren't. And in some cases, to the point where now it's even impossible to do that. So the tenor changed. And it's also important to point out that nothing from draft night, any of those allegations, were found ultimately even to be credible and were not part of the case.
Just as a follow-up, post-April 2016, that involves the 3 Lewis interviews with the NCAA and the sort of path they took to connect him with Rebel Rags, as well as the other allegations against the booster. Is that what you're referencing specifically? Do you feel like you were left out of?
Oh, yes, we were left out of that process, yes.
Just for clarity, either one of you, if it weren't for this extra bowl ban, would you have come out of today, I don't wanna say satisfied, but okay with the results?
Well, the NCAA accepted everything that we self-imposed, and with one exception, added this new penalty, which is the 2018 postseason bowl ban. So we would have been disappointed about findings of institutional control or other aspects of their findings, but we could have lived with the consequences. The bowl ban is just not acceptable.
All right, any more questions? All right, thank you, gentlemen. Thanks, everyone, for coming out.